Hi, you're welcome to my YouTube channel, and I am Dr. Princess. And in this video, we shall be looking at 5 important reasons why child sexual abuse prevention is important. Okay, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, what we look at in this channel are issues around child sexual abuse prevention and provision of effective crisis response. And all of this is because children are vital, they're important, they're the future, and if we make the environment safe for them, they would enjoy their childhood and grow to be healthy people with full of their potentials and demonstrating and expressing their potentials to national development, to furthering humanity and doing great exploits. Number 1, child sexual abuse is preventable. We can prevent sexual abuse of children from happening. The reason why we're still having so much challenges around it is because the prevention aspect of it has not so much been delved into. And when I say delve into, nations globally are trying their best, but we can say the best is still not good enough because we're still having children being molested as we're speaking. As you're listening to me, something is happening to a child somewhere in the world. Apart from conflicts areas, apart from refugee issues, we're talking about right in the home where they are, in the places where they're supposed to be safe, they're not safe at school, at home, in religious gatherings, public places. I mean, really where children are supposed to feel safe, they're not safe. And this is because it's not been taken as something crucial to the development of humanity across board that we have to put so much into this. So going back, it is preventable, and this has been done by making sure that we create a healthy and safe environment, and circumstances for children to grow, so we avoid sexual crimes. We can avoid them. Number 2, we need to avoid repairing damaged adults. If we say 1 in 3 women would have experienced a form of sexual abuse in their lifetime, so we're not going back to issues of childhood trauma, childhood incidents that affect them, and that also has to do with the male. Don't forget, child sexual abuse affects both boys and girls. And then you have adult men and adult women who are having issues based on what happened to them as children, the trauma that they faced as children, particularly from sexual abuse. Of course, there are different types of traumatic events in our lives that could happen to us, but we've found that sexual abuse is one that pikes, and really affects humans. So what are we supposed to be looking at when we say we want to avoid childhood trauma? We want to look at the consequences of child sexual abuse. It has a lot of negative, both in the immediate when it happens to them as children, and in the long term as adults. We have post-traumatic stress disorder. We're looking at childhood trauma as it's affecting adults today in their lives. We're seeing many not being able to give the best of their potentials. And I always keep coming to myself as an example. And soon we'll be having some other, guests on this, on this channel. We'll be sharing, the impact it has on, not really the abuse itself, because they were abused as children, but the impact it had in their lives, the mental torture that they go through, and different other things. We're talking about, for the immediate, you're looking at fear, you're looking at nightmares, you're looking at being scared of a particular area or particular person or particular times. Certain sounds could trigger off, fright and freezing, and many things. And then you have abnormal stomach pain. Then you have those who become, so traumatic that they begin to show off certain characters that are not, some behaviors that are not so much okay with their growth. Now we also have children who begin to have inappropriate sexual behavior. And now I'm talking about immediate consequences. And I'm not talking about the long-term consequences, talking about guilt. They feel guilt, they carry the burden on themselves. Of course, some of them are carrying secrets as children, not to share what has happened to them. So it's quite a lot. And if you look back later into the comment area, you'll see some other more points that will be mentioned there in terms of the consequences that happen. And these are 2 reasons I've mentioned now why it is very important that we prevent child sexual abuse. The impact is so deep that it affects not just the individual, but the immediate family and intimate relationships, faith, education, and career. And the victims are likely to become adults who will still experience a form of abuse. Could be sexual, could be emotional, could be, the different forms of abuses. That is neglect, physical, sexual, emotional, and even economical, as we say. However, there is no specific order of the way consequences happen. There are quite a few factors that could determine how an individual would respond to child sexual abuse, particularly if we're looking at, just give me a second. Okay, we have to look at the child's experience and the experiences in the child's life, that is previous experiences in the child's life and the history. We're looking at the nature of the sexual abuse and the child's reaction. We're looking at the way the immediate family also responds to the child and the first responders that the child encounters in the process of whether receiving medical attention or reporting if disclosure does come up. And children at different ages also display different express different impacts of the experience of sexual abuse. However, one of the key things I want to talk about is, like I said, I always use my personal experience. I ended up, in my life experiencing from research. I got that clarification from research that I experienced really some of the worst impacts and consequences of sexual abuse of children. And and that's quite, that's not for the topic for today in terms of looking at really bringing them down to this and this and this and that, But I did experience a lot of that. I didn't get my life back until I think I was about 33 in my life before I could really start saying, I can begin to say I can begin to pieces my life together. And there are people who have not gone through, they're still in the trauma, they're still in that space where the pain, and some people can't even understand why things are happening to them. Also because they've been able to just shut down. I remember one time I was talking to some mothers, and one of them did mention to me that she did not even remember that she was sexually abused as a child until a particular family meeting where she heard the laughter. She heard this laughter, and that laughter was she knows that she could recognize the laughter. It triggered off and brought her back to that experience, to that place where the sexual abuse happened by an uncle of hers. So these things are real. We do not want to have damaged people, adults. Remember, it's easier to prevent than to begin to treat damaged adults. And you see, even though it could impact on people's career and education, some people get to be PhD holders, they get to the peak of their careers, but there's still that but in their lives because of the childhood trauma they experienced. Number 3 is to look at the economic consequences of child sexual abuse on the nation, the world, and of course humanity. Not all nations have been able to calculate precisely or have exact figures to how much they're losing because of the impact of child sexual abuse. But some countries have been able to do that, which is great. And It's because the lot of physical and sexual abuse, neglect and all of that, costing some nations up to about 65.9 billion. Why is that? Extra costs of social welfare. You have to get more staff, you have to put more structures in place, more infrastructure, and they keep all over the world. There's not enough. For countries who have been able to say they have foster care, that is extra cost because they have to pay the foster family. There's an amount they have to give it per each child to a foster family in some countries, of course. In Africa, I will say what happens is because we have this extended family structure, and so it becomes a burden on the extra family to take care of, you know, children who have been impacted, who are moved to live with them as extra burdens, economical burdens, because it's not part of. I mean, they already have unplanned families, most of them, and then there you're bringing another child in because they have to take in the child because they are family or they are blood kin. So it's the medical sector is also affected. Government has to put in more free services, more doctors, more nurses, you know, specialized courses and trainings to have. So there's a lot of strain, and of course, these people are not giving their best. They're at work. They have mental health issues. They have to go to the hospital. They actually have more inclination to have health problems. And it's just the same with other forms of abuses. So it's an economical burden on the nation resources as well as on individual family resources in taking care of these children and the health, of course. And of course, we have the issues of the prisons. Yes, so we're talking about criminal, you know, issues as well, where we have to put in more money or have more prisons, have more staff to manage these resources, put in rehabilitation, put in psychologists, you know, just quite a lot that affects the different sectors, which means more money has to be pumped in to these areas to sort of make these people okay. We can do so much more and so much better, but the issue is prevention is better than cure. And number 4 is to look at adult responsibility. There is no way you want to talk about preventing child sexual abuse that adults will not be held responsible. And adults cover the government, adults cover the legislators, adult covers the social workers, adult covers the criminal justice sector, adult covers the educational sector, adults cover the religious sector, adults cover parents and guardians, and adults cover every other person who's an adult in the society. Growing as a child in Lagos, Nigeria, I could remember a time where if you were holding a currency you shouldn't have, an amount of money you shouldn't have, to go and pick up, you know, maybe sweets or something from the store in the neighborhood, if the currency in your hand is too big to the seller, she's going to hold you down and call your parents. So everybody cared for children. If you were seen in an awkward situation, you were going to be called out by the next adult who was passing by. So what are you doing there? And that was how I grew up, knowing that everybody cares for children. There is a proverb that used to say, when you are pregnant, you are the one that owns the baby. But once the baby is born, the baby is going to be cared for by everyone. So it falls on us as adults to prevent. And that is where we have to make sure that we have the right, healthy and safe structures and environment and circumstances made for children, for them to enjoy the beauty of childhood, and so that they devoid of any form of abuse, sexual being the worst. When we are thinking of war, we should think of the children. When we are thinking of splitting, we think of the children. When we're thinking of divorce, when you're thinking of giving birth to a child, you need to think about it before having the child. It's so important, and that is why we look at issues of family planning. You just can't dump children on earth. We have to do so much to show that we are responsible people. Make the environment, make policies that will not just make the policies or make the laws, but also make sure the implementation is key. And always we just have to keep updating, upgrading, check it, evaluate it. Is it working? What are we missing? We just have to keep doing more, because it is our responsibility to make sure children are safe in any place they are, at home, in school, and in all these safe places are where you are having the most of abuses. So we have to. Lastly, for this particular video is involve children. We can't come up with all the answers, interesting enough. We've got to carry children along. It's important that they are a part of the prevention. And since we have the child rights, declaration, which nearly all nations have signed. Nearly, I said nearly, but we have quite the majority who have signed to be a part of that from the UN. And now you want to look at it. Some nations already have very good child protection and safeguarding, policies, child welfare systems to keep children safe, in quotes. But like I said earlier, it's something that they need to keep looking and updating, look at the loopholes, look at the gaps, and find how we can make this better. But children have to be involved in how they say. We listen to them. You'll be surprised the kind of responses you will get from children when it comes to issues that affect them. They must have a voice, and that is part of their rights, to have a voice, because things are happening to them where they can tell you and they can give us key insights, and perspective into the solution of preventing child sexual abuse. So you're working with me, whether you're a parent, you need to get your children involved in the issue of prevention. If you're a school, you've got to bring the children into the child protection development and also maintenance. You can't just cut them off. Whether you're a religious organization, the churches, the Muslims, the Christians, whatever your religion may be, you've got to involve children when it comes to issues of their protection. And governments too need to listen to the children when it comes to developing things about children. Like I said, you'll be very surprised with the kind of results and contributions that children will provide on the issue. So, thank you once again for joining me this channel. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so that you can receive alerts once the videos are released. Once again, thank you for joining me, and we've got to make the world safe for our children, and that's the goal, for them to grow up enjoying the beauty of childhood. Even as adults, we go back there, don't we? Okay, ciao, see you.